Hi, Craig Ridley here from Your Business Coaching Club, and in this video I want to look at how you can professionalize the family business. We know that family businesses are really important in the global economy. Probably up to 75% of all businesses are run by families of some description. They're also the biggest employers of staff in most countries, and certainly one of the bigger contributors to gross domestic product. And it always sounds pretty cool to be able to work with family, to be able to keep it within the family group. You know the people you're going to be working with, and you can give opportunities to your family members. So it really sounds quite cool, but we know that sometimes, and quite often in fact, the reality is perhaps not as good as what the dream sounds like it should be. So if I look at what isn't great about family businesses, and then we'll move on to perhaps what you can do about that. One of the things that I see is that decisions are often made on an emotional basis rather than on true business principles, and it's always understandable as to how this can come about, because family dynamics are just difficult and they're different in every family group, and they change over time as the family dynamics change as well. But the problem is that those family dynamics just seem to infiltrate the business model as well, and that becomes a bit of a problem when you're trying to make decisions that are right for the business but obviously have an impact on the people within that family group. Family issues over time quite often come into the equation, and they impact both the personal relationships but then also the business relationships there. So things like divorce, or if some of the family members start to become affected by drugs, these are things that you don't necessarily plan for or don't necessarily foresee happening, but life takes turns for all of us, and sometimes these things hit a family. You need to try and deal with it, and it just makes it doubly difficult when you're trying to deal with it at the personal level, at the family level, and then also at the business level as well. Things like hierarchical expectations within family groups, and this changes from culture to culture, country to country as well, but to be fairly standard that if a business is being run by mum and dad at the moment, and then the kids start to come through, then it's often the oldest child, and quite often the oldest son, who mum and dad may well look to become the next leader of the business and owner of the business, and the younger ones might have to fight for their place a little bit more. So that hierarchical structure certainly impacts on how people relate to themselves in a business sense. Unfortunately, just because your family's in business doesn't mean that everyone's got the right skill sets to be successful in business. And if we go to that hierarchical issue of perhaps the oldest son being the one who is brought through into the leadership position, when he or she, or he if it's a son, or she if she's the oldest daughter, may not actually have the skills to be a leader, might be very good as an operational manager, but might not have the financial skills or the communication skills or the management skills to make a good leader. So, and it's difficult then to try and put family members in their right places, but we just have to realize that not every person in business generally, but certainly not every business within, and not every person within your family group will have the right skill sets to take leadership roles within the family business. Performance management within a family group can become really difficult. I mean, someone might not be performing in a business sense or in their employment sense, and if that was just an external employee, you'd have a different frame of mind when you came to do performance management with them than you would if it was your own child, or if it was your brother or your sister, and particularly knowing all the personal circumstances then that they might be going through. So it just clouds that whole issue within a family group. We just have to accept that succession planning is a horribly complex area. We're dealing with emotions rather than technical or business principled decisions a lot of the time. And poor old mum and dad are quite often saddled with this responsibility of trying to choose which of the next generation is going to come through and take over the business, and then how you would structure that. And it causes a lot of grief both at mum and dad's level, where they need to be making that decision, but also at the kid level, the child level, as they come through as well. And again, some of them can have big families and small families, or no families coming through underneath that as the third generation of business owners as well. So it's just a horribly complex area in the succession planning. So the question is then accepting those issues that impact upon family businesses, but accepting that family businesses are the backbone of most of our economies, and that they are a practical way for people to get into business and to be successful in business as well. So what are the sort of things you can do just to overcome some of those issues? However you do it, the key to all of this is you absolutely have to separate the family life from the business life. And I know that becomes really difficult to manage, but it's one of those golden rules you need to be putting in place. There are times when you sit down as a family group and you talk about the issues within the family and you try and resolve those issues, but there are also times where you sit down and you look at the business performance itself, the business strategy in isolation, and you make decisions that are best for the business. You will try and balance the two, but I think the secret to success in a family business is absolutely that ability to separate your family life from your business life, and that requires some formality in how everyone conducts themselves within that family business. So I'm a big one for making sure that you define the roles of each family member, you define the responsibilities that they've got within the business structure. You need to define rewards for everyone. So what's everyone going to be paid in terms of a salary? And to me, it should be based on the commercial value of the job that they're doing. Then you also look at the rewards they might get from holding equity positions within the business. So, what level of equity does everyone have? Is everyone treated equally, or do we start recognizing some differences in the equity? Someone will have more of an ownership interest and more of a management say than others, perhaps, as we go through those. And all of these roles, responsibilities, the reward structures, the equity positions, all of those need to be documented. And in Australia, we use a thing called a shareholder agreement to do that. It's not necessarily a legally binding document. It does have the force of law, but as we know, all contracts and all agreements quite often aren't worth the paper they're written on. And in families, we quite often have situations where, even though someone may have gone outside the letter of an agreement, because it's family, we start to, soften the edges of that and perhaps not go as hard legally as we could if it was an external party. But I really think at the start of a business, and then at key points during the business, when new family members come into the business, you need to sit down and just formalize in a document what everyone needs to do in the business, how they need to conduct themselves, and what sort of rewards they're going to be taking out of that business. I'm a big fan of making sure that children, when they come into the business, have to work their way up, that they're paid no more than anybody else that you would employ to do that position, that the expectations of them turning up to work on time, the way they conduct themselves, their performance management needs to be exactly the same as every other external employee that you've got. If you don't do that, you're setting the kids up for a fall, because they won't have the respect of the staff members around them, and they also won't be learning the lessons that they need to learn to make them better business owners and better business leaders later on. Also, if you don't set the ground rules early enough, then it's very easy for the children of the owners to develop this entitlement attitude, and as they get older and mature through the business, and you need to start having really serious conversations around succession planning matters, if you've allowed your children to have or build up this entitlement attitude because they're the sons of the sons and daughters of the owners, they deserve to be treated differently. If they come in with that attitude, it's really hard to manage when we start getting into some of the difficult conversations. So set it up early, as soon as the kids come into the business, or if you start a business with family members, on day one you must have this documented shareholders agreement in place so that everyone knows where they stand. I do think family businesses benefit by setting up a formal board of management. Now, we don't need a formal board of directors, but you can certainly go to that level. But a board of management where at least the family members in their roles sit down on a regular basis to discuss the performance and the strategy of the family business, just as you would do with a board of directors. But I think it's also a great opportunity to make sure you're bringing other skill sets into the management and leadership structures within the business. So if we need some marketing skills that aren't necessarily inside the family group, then having a marketing person on that board of management would make sense. Perhaps a lawyer, perhaps a finance guy, perhaps an HR specialist at different times. You can roll different people into those board of management type positions. You need to actively manage your succession planning process, and it needs to start early. I think I've talked enough around that. Recognize that it's hard, but the sooner you start on it and the more formal you are at the start in terms of making sure everyone's expectations are managed, the more successful you're going to be at the end of it, and the easier the process will be when you get to the really difficult stuff of executing that succession plan. And all of this just ties up into a really strong business planning process for your business. So, look, I hope that makes sense. For members of your business coaching club, there's a whole coaching module on professionalizing the family business. So, I recommend that you work your way through that, and particularly with the action plan, you'll find that in your small business MBA area. Once you've worked your way through that and you understand what you think you need to do to implement those strategies within your business, then stick that into your one-page business plan, update that, and start allocating some time and resources to the implementation phase of that. As always in the club, I encourage everyone to learn from the experience of other members. So having completed that module, or if you've got any questions in relation to succession planning experiences, then get your feedback and support by raising the question in our members forum. And you'll get plenty of feedback from myself as your business coach, from other business coaches, and certainly other small business entrepreneurs who are members in the club as well. But as always, as I say in all of my videos, just make sure you take some action. Do something with the knowledge that you gain from going through these modules and sitting through these videos. That said, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Log into the club at yourbusinesscoachingclub.com, and I look forward to hearing from you in the members forum. Bye now.